Purpose is not a goal. It's not a career. It's not even a plan. It's something older than thought, deeper than identity, and quieter than ambition. It doesn't arrive in a flash of logic. It reveals itself through experience, emotion, and inner contradiction. Carl Jung knew this. He didn't define purpose as a path you invent, but a direction you remember, a calling that's already embedded within your psyche, waiting for the noise to clear. Most people try to figure out their purpose by thinking harder, listing interests, talents, options. But that's not how the soul speaks. Purpose isn't found through analysis. It's found through alignment. You're not lost because you haven't figured it out. You're lost because you've been trained to search in the wrong direction. You've been told to look outward, towards status, validation, and the blueprint of a successful life. But Jung warned us, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. That's not just poetic, it's precise. The more you chase purpose like a prize, the more disconnected you feel. Because true purpose doesn't emerge from the mind. It emerges from the self, the core of your being that knows who you are beneath the expectations, the performance, the fear. This is why so many people feel adrift, even when they're achieving things. They're climbing ladders they don't care about, checking boxes they never chose, living out scripts that don't match their soul. And the deeper tragedy, they think the emptiness means they're broken, that they're doing life wrong. But Jung would say, the emptiness is a signal, not of failure, but of misalignment. It's your soul whispering, this isn't it. Not because the work is beneath you, but because it's not yours. Purpose isn't a job title. It's a pattern. It's the consistent thread running through your life. The moments that feel sacred, lit up, strangely familiar. The conversations that leave you vibrating. The activities that make time disappear. The topics that draw your curiosity again and again, even if they don't make sense. Jung taught that these are not coincidences. They're messages from the unconscious, from the parts of you that already know. But most of us never pause long enough to listen. We override the signal with shoulds. We dilute our instinct with advice. We mistake practicality for wisdom, and in doing so, we miss the map that's been under our skin the entire time. You don't find your purpose by declaring it. You find it by tracking it. Look back. What moments cracked you open? What roles felt effortless even when they were hard? What wounds shaped your worldview? What dreams keep coming back, no matter how many times you bury them? Jung believed that every soul carries a blueprint, not of what to achieve, but of what to become. And that blueprint speaks through longing, resistance, synchronicity, and sometimes even suffering. Not to punish, but to guide. If you feel lost right now, it might be because you're finally ready to drop the version of you that chased purpose like a destination. And that's not a breakdown. That's an initiation. You're beginning to understand that purpose isn't what you do. It's what moves through you when you stop performing. It's the energy you carry when you're honest, present, awake. You don't need to find it. You need to remember how to feel it. How Jung's theory of individuation reveals the path to your deepest calling. Carl Jung didn't believe that purpose was a fixed destiny, some single grand mission you either find or fail. He believed purpose was a process, a deep psychological unfolding, a becoming. He called it individuation, the journey of integrating all parts of yourself, conscious and unconscious, until you become whole. Not perfect, not flawless, whole. And in Jung's view, that wholeness is your purpose. Not because it's neat and marketable, but because it reconnects you to the source of your own inner guidance. Purpose, then, isn't something you create. It's something you uncover as you reconcile your inner world. Individuation starts with awareness. You begin noticing your patterns, the ways you perform, protect, hide. You realize that some parts of you have been in the driver's seat while others have been exiled. Your logic might dominate while your sensitivity hides, or your ambition might shine while your playfulness disappears. Jung would say, each of these parts is a fragment of your psyche, and your purpose isn't to amplify one, it's to bring them all back into conversation. Because when all parts of you are allowed to exist, your inner compass begins to realign. You stop chasing validation. You stop mimicking others. You start creating from the deepest part of you, the part that never needed to be told who you are. This process is uncomfortable because it requires dismantling the identity you've built around approval. It forces you to face the moments you betrayed your own intuition to fit in. It asks you to sit with the parts of yourself that feel messy, too much, not enough. But this is the exact terrain where your true purpose lives, not in your polish. In authenticity, because that's where your energy is most potent. That's where your voice isn't borrowed. That's where your life stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a pulse. Jung taught that we all carry a self, the blueprint of who we're capable of becoming, but we lose touch with it through socialization, trauma, adaptation. We become what the world demands and forget who we were before the edits. The purpose of individuation is to reverse that forgetting, not by discarding your current life, but by re-inhabiting it with soul. Purpose doesn't require you to burn everything down. It asks you to bring your full self into everything you already do. And if where you are can't hold that full self, that's when it's time to evolve. One of Jung's most powerful ideas was that the self doesn't shout. It whispers. It comes in dreams, in intuition, in resistance to what once worked, in fascination with what doesn't yet make sense. That's why finding your purpose doesn't feel logical. It feels alive, and often inconvenient, because it doesn't always match what's expected of you. But that tension, that's the threshold. You're not failing. You're being invited inward, deeper, truer. And yes, this process can be lonely. When you start individuating, you might outgrow roles, relationships, even entire versions of your life. You might feel lost, untethered, like nothing fits anymore. Jung would say, that's the proof you're on the path, because purpose doesn't make you comfortable. It makes you real. It reconnects you with what's been buried beneath the masks. And that reconnection is where your unique voice begins to rise. Not louder, clearer. If you're in that space now, in between who you were and who you're becoming, don't rush. Let the discomfort shape you. Let the silence speak. Because underneath the confusion isn't failure. It's truth. And truth, once fully integrated, doesn't just guide you toward your purpose, it becomes it. And if this content is making sense to you, then click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Why your purpose is tied to the wound you've spent years avoiding. Carl Jung taught that the seed of your purpose is often buried inside the very thing you were taught to hide, your deepest wound. That thing you thought disqualified you, the shame you carried in silence, the pain you tried to outgrow. That's not the barrier to your purpose. It's the bridge. Because your greatest expansion doesn't come from what went smoothly. It comes from what broke you open and forced you to rebuild. Not out of bitterness, but with insight. Your wound, Jung said, is the womb of transformation. And until you face it, your purpose will stay out of reach. Not because it's far, but because it's hidden behind the part of you you've been afraid to meet. Think about it. The people who inspire you the most, they didn't get there through perfection. They got there through integration, through turning pain into perspective, scar tissue into strength, survival into service. You don't have to become a guru, but your unique medicine for the world will always carry the fingerprint of your own suffering, not because you're broken, but because your empathy, your insight, your fire, they were all forged through the things you never thought you'd get through. And now that you have, you're holding keys, not for everyone, but for someone, maybe for many. You don't need to monetize your pain. You don't need to turn it into content, but you do need to face it, fully, lovingly, without trying to edit it into something more acceptable. Jung believed that unintegrated wounds create projection, but integrated wounds create wisdom, the kind of wisdom that radiates without trying, the kind that makes people pause, not because you're loud, but because your presence holds weight. That's purpose, not performance, not achievement, but aliveness that's been earned. Your journey is already underway. Your purpose isn't waiting at the end. It's waiting to be revealed at every moment you choose truth over image, clarity over comfort, inner voice over external noise. And the more you choose that, the more your life starts to shape itself around what actually matters, not what you were told should. How to listen for purpose, and the one feeling that always knows. The question isn't, what's my purpose? The question is, where is my aliveness leading me? That's what Jung believed. Because purpose doesn't show up like a job offer or a clear roadmap. It shows up as a feeling, a spark, a resonance. And most people miss it, not because it's not there, but because they've been trained to ignore it. They're looking for a logical fit, a socially acceptable answer, something that looks good on paper. But the soul doesn't care about your resume. It cares about what makes your heart beat differently, what you feel in your chest before your mind tries to shut it down. That's the signal. That's the whisper of purpose trying to get through. This feeling isn't always joy. Sometimes it's pain, grief, longing, rage. But it always carries a strange sense of aliveness, like something in you is waking up, getting louder, asking to be heard. That's why purpose often shows up through contrast, in the things that hurt because they matter, in the things you can't stop thinking about, in the injustices that leave you shaking, in the moments where you feel a surge, even if it's uncomfortable. Those aren't random. They're coordinates. Jung believed the psyche speaks in symbols, patterns, and sensations. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And if your life is too loud, too scheduled, too curated, too distracted, you won't hear it. That's why silence matters, not to escape life, but to feel into it, to sense where your body expands, where your intuition leans forward, where time disappears and your presence deepens. That's purpose. It doesn't always make sense, but it always makes you more real. So, how do you listen? You start paying attention to what draws your curiosity again and again. You notice the moments you feel like yourself. You stop dismissing what feels too small or too strange. You recognize that the things you've always loved, storytelling, helping, building, creating, those aren't distractions. They're breadcrumbs. You honor what keeps showing up, not as pressure but as a clue. You begin asking, what feels like truth, even when it's not logical? Because the soul doesn't care about logic. It cares about resonance. And purpose lives at the intersection of your deepest truth and your greatest courage. You don't arrive there by mapping it out. You arrive by becoming someone who can hold it. And that begins by listening, fully, fearlessly, to the signal underneath the noise, the soul-led life, and why you already know the way. There's a moment, quiet, sudden, when it hits you, you were never really lost. You were just waiting to trust yourself again. Waiting to stop asking for permission, waiting to stop performing, waiting to stop chasing some external idea of purpose, and finally listen to what's always been calling from within. That's what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Because purpose isn't something you earn, it's something you uncover once you stop trying to be someone else. The soul-led life isn't loud, it's not perfect. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And real is what you've been craving all along. You don't need a title, a platform, a 5-year plan. You need a connection to yourself that's so strong, you stop getting distracted by everything that isn't meant for you. That's purpose, a quiet confidence, a grounded presence, a life that matches your truth. Even if it doesn't match the world's expectations. You already know what it feels like when you're aligned. Things don't get easier, but they get lighter. You're not dragging yourself through the day. You're moved by something deeper, something clear. That clarity doesn't come from fixing everything. It comes from remembering yourself, the self beneath the roles, the instinct beneath the conditioning, the voice beneath the noise. And no, it won't all make sense at once. That's not how soul guidance works. It moves in layers, symbols, moments of resonance that build upon each other. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to say yes to the next right step, the one that feels alive, even if it's scary. That's how you walk in purpose, not with certainty, with integrity. Jung taught that the more you listen to the self, the more your outer life reorganizes around your inner alignment. The right work, the right people, the right timing, it all starts unfolding. Not because you chased it, but because you stopped chasing what wasn't you. And if you're here now, hearing this, you're closer than you think. You don't need more answers. You need more trust, more inner listening, more silence between the noise. Because the truth is, you already know the way. You've known it for a long time. You've just been waiting for permission to follow it. This is your permission. This is your moment. This is the beginning of the life you were designed to live. If you made it this far, you're not just watching, you're remembering, returning, reclaiming your inner ground. So trust that the video YouTube shows you next, the one appearing now, is not random. It's the next doorway, the next layer, and it will meet you exactly where you are. If this resonated, take a moment to subscribe. Drop a comment below, not for the algorithm, but to mark this chapter in your journey. We'll see you in the next depth. Depthoria continues.